Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the final session of BGA Careers Month. And to conclude our month of careers-related content, I'm delighted to host an online panel discussion to provide you with some insights into how graduate recruitment has been affected during COVID-19 and to hear from some recent graduates who have had success with the recruitment process over the past 18 months. My name is David Woods-Hale. I'm Director of Marketing and Communications at AMBA and BGA. And I'm today joined by panelists representing recent business graduates from the BGA community and international recruitment specialists who are going to discuss some of the trends most impacting career trajectories and recruitment strategies. The session discussion is scheduled to last for about an hour, and I have some questions to get us started, but if you'd like to ask anything at all, just pop them in the questions panel and I'll try and get through as many as I can before the end of the session. We'll also be able to send you a complete recording of the session in about a week to refresh your memory, so look out for that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my amazing panel for today. So we are joined by Leah Galopin, Project Manager for France Rugby, who graduated from Neoma Business School in June last year. We've also got Amnik Kaur, Manager of Corporate Strategy and Development at ASDA, who graduated last year with an MBA from Alliance Manchester Business School, and Richard Schofield, Managing Director of Client Services at AMS, who works with several blue chip organizations offering strategic input into recruitment, talent management, and workforce planning. So if I come to you first, Leah, I guess just to break the ice a little bit for the delegates today, if you want to sort of share a little bit about your background and really how your business qualification made a difference to your career path and I suppose your leadership journey, that would be great.
Yeah, I think if I could do today my work, it's thanks to my business school, and maybe I can say that it's more thanks to soft skills than hard skills. I mean, difference is really important because during business school we really learn how we have to do in our job after and how we can work together thanks to a lot of work team and also conference like seminar like this or lots of things like this, and thanks to association also. And I think all of these soft skills really improve my faculty to adapt me in all my experience. Also in my internships, because we have a lot of internships, even in my job today, that I do like to say, yeah.
Fabulous, thank you very much. And same question to yourself, Amnik, just if you want to share a little bit about your experience at business school and how that sort of, I suppose, steered your career path.
Sure. So I think my reason for coming to the business school was to understand more about how the strategy part of the business works and how to approach a business problem and dissect it and do the market research. So that was my aim. And when I came to Alliance Manchester Business School, I think I was really happy with the balance between the practical learning and the theoretical learning. So we did a lot of consulting projects where we worked with clients, and that was really helpful to understand how to apply the theory in the real world. So we learned about, dissecting the business problem, and then we were doing it for a live client at the same time. So I think that was really helpful to me to understand the basics of strategy, and sort of the same principles I apply in my job as well. So I'm part of the corporate strategy team, and we do something similar to what I learned in the business school in terms of scoping a problem, doing the market research, and then framing the recommendations. So the process is something which the business school helped me learn, and I'm applying it every day in my job as well. So it's been really good.
Fantastic, thank you. So as I mentioned at the start of the conversation, we're here to talk a little bit about the impact the pandemic's had on recruitment and really, I suppose, trends and things that we can look at moving forward. So if I come to you now, Richard, I guess from your experience, what has changed in light of the pandemic, and what do you think employers are looking for from business graduates in particular at the moment?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I think what employers are looking for is probably very similar to what they were looking for before, but the hunger and appetite to engage with and acquire talent has increased hugely. So as an organization, we've seen a 40% uplift in our demand globally, for not only talent generally, but in the graduate space and early career space too. I think that hunger for that graduate to understand the business and to have an appetite to understand the business, to be connected with the purpose of the organization, to understand the EVP and to be excited about it. And that's always existed, but I think it's more prevalent now. But also the ability to grow, so that potential of as an individual, because organizations have absolutely learned and are continuing to learn the importance of early careers and graduate hiring, and it's normally sponsored at that exec level. There's normally a number of execs that have those either alumni or just want to be involved in a program that's bringing the future leaders of the business in. But the appetite to bring those individuals in has increased hugely so. And that measuring of potential is where I think every organization is trying to get better from an assessment and selection perspective, is how do we understand that? So for me, if I was coming out and graduating now or coming out of a business school today, I'd be as hungry as I was when I did to say, do I understand enough about the business? Can I express that in a conversation? As Amneek was saying to me earlier, whether that be on Zoom or face-to-face or just over a call, can I convey that message? And do I understand? And am I hungry to know more? And again, I've interviewed some graduates recently where some of the standout individuals had understood the business before they came into that conversation, had some great questions around what the business's future plans were around sustainability, around people and culture. And that just impressed me so much because they were thinking more broadly around than the role or the program they were coming into. They were thinking in the career, they were thinking about the future scope of the business. So I'd say it's not necessarily changed, David, but it has increased from a demand perspective. I would also say that organizations have looked at how do we engage with our populations differently during this period. So whether that be, as Amneek said, whether it be via Zoom or virtual methods, but everything's available from a digital perspective on most organizations now. So showing an aptitude to go and find that information, engage with some of the platforms that organizations like WayUp have used to share information out of business is key. And I think organizations are putting more emphasis on that. I think they're also reducing the emphasis on which schools graduates have come from. And that's, for me, a big thing. And that was happening anyway. But I think what the pandemic has done through pure demand has said, we're not only narrowing our pipeline of talented individuals, but we're also impacting our ability to hit our D&I objectives as an organization. So I think opening that to, rightly so, to more schools and more talent is something we've seen. I think it's brilliant for my teams to see that we're not limiting this to certain schools now. And again, I hope we see that continue as we, touch wood, come out of this pandemic. Whenever that, if someone can tell me when that'll be, then great. But I think we'll see that continue as that time goes on.
Fab, thank you. There's loads of points there I'm going to come back to, but I'm just going to flip the question on its head a little bit for Amneek and Leah. So you both went to amazing business schools, and that goes without saying. And I think that obviously stood you in great stead in terms of your qualification. But both of you would have started your master's programs before COVID hit and finished it during. So I'd be interested to find out your experience of your recruitment process to find the jobs that you're in. Perhaps if I come to yourself first, Amneek, and then if I come to you, Leah. So really, I suppose, how did that happen? Was it done virtually? How did that sort of work, I suppose?
Yeah, I think, so I graduated in April 2020, which was right at the start of the pandemic. And I think it was a sudden switch in the market, I would say, because a lot of my batchmates as well, they had offers, but companies revoked them because of, they didn't want to hire people. And even with me, I had I was in discussion with one of the companies in terms of a potential job opportunity where I had done my internship. But because of the pandemic, it was put on hold. And I think a lot of projects were deprioritized, and that impacted the recruiting bit. So I think at the start of the pandemic, it was quite different. Like you could see that how, there was a deep fall in the hiring part, which was really difficult for students to how to cope up with that. And it was when you're graduating and then there's a drop in the market, how do you respond to that? So I think for me personally, I feel with Asda, I feel grateful because they've moved the process virtually, and they interviewed me virtually, and everything was done through Zoom, and it all worked out. And they were I think it depends from business to business. So Asda was recruiting a lot during the pandemic because the supermarket demand had increased, and they wanted to hire more people and expand the teams. So I think that sort of factored in my favor, and it was a good role that came up in corporate strategy, which was a good fit with my skill set. So I think that the fit bit is really important, which Richard was also talking about, that the culture fit, your skill set fit. So I think that is extremely important. And then I think one of the challenges I faced was also that the switch happened very quickly. So how to bring out your personality on Zoom and how to, convey, sort of build that I think personal connection through Zoom, that was a challenge. So for that I took a lot of help from my careers team. I did a lot of mock interviews on Zoom and practiced a lot more, which was helpful then to sort of prep me that I feel comfortable in front of the camera and not sort of. I think a lot of people, because it was so quick, like everything shifted digital and we didn't know how to adapt so quickly. So I think having those mock interviews really helped me and built my confidence that I can be more comfortable in front of a camera and bring my true personality out in the camera. So yeah, that was helpful. And I joined virtually as well, which was quite an interesting story. I had my virtual onboarding. I got my laptop delivered at home, and it was not a way you would expect to join a business, but I think we had to adapt. Everyone was adapting with the new world, and it was a bit difficult to join a new team and be virtual and not connect with everyone in the team and how to be a part of the team. But I think what worked well for me was that my team had these regular catch-ups and they made me feel really welcomed and be a part of the team. So I think digitally it's important that you have these check-ins and regular catch-ups and team activities as well. We have Friday quizzes just to feel a part of the team and be more engaged. So it's been 1 year for me now, and I think I've hardly gone to the office. Today is one of those days where I have a meeting, so I'm in the office, but it's been a virtual 1 year for me. So I think what was important is adaptability, and that is one of the skills which the MBA, as Leah was talking, the softer skills. So the MBA sort of helped me to adapt quickly to this changing environment.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Was it a similar experience for yourself, Leah, or did you have a different journey?
Yeah, a little bit. First, for me, so I finished my double degree because I did a double degree with sports school. So I finished in last June, so at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was okay because it was the end of my internship. So I could finish my internship like more or less like normal life. And then I left my internship was in the French Federation, so it was easier, I think, for me to find my job, because when I left in last June, my internship supervisor left maybe 2 or 3 months before, so they called me back. So that's really a great opportunity because of the pandemic. I think sports ecosystem was also, and is also, ecosystem really impacted by the pandemic, and it was really complicated, maybe for my friends in my degree, and also for them, because they don't have a job now. It's like 1.5 years, and it's really complicated. But for me, it was really an opportunity that French Federation called me back in October. So it was like easy, even in pandemic life. But after, I really agree with Annick, because even for job and for integration, it's difficult to join a team. Again, one time it was more easy for me because I need this team, because I work with them for 8 months before, but it was difficult to have a place with a new job, with the new responsibilities, and to find a real place in the company. And also because my job, I'm in charge of partnerships on the women matches, so I need to go on sites and to develop activations, partnership activations, and also I need contact with everybody, with other of our partnerships. So in this time was complicated. I lucky because it's professional team, so they played. Even if there were nobody in the stadium, but they played. So I had my missions as well. But yeah, the balance is maybe in the middle, because I had a job, but integration was difficult, and we need to develop adaptation. I really agree with her. Yes, with Nick. It's maybe the world of the life now.
Amazing, thank you. I'm just going to pick up on some points that you made, Rich, and I'm going to ask you now to represent and speak for all employers. So just brace yourself for that. But
that's dangerous.
Very. But you quite rightly pointed out that there is a movement that employers are caring less, I suppose, about what school graduates went to and asking more about skills. But in saying that, there has been an indictment of, I suppose, job specifications that they've been asking for quite generic terminology, terms like adaptability, collaboration, trustworthiness, innovation, talent. And that might not necessarily be clear enough when communicating with students, business schools, careers teams. Do you think that there is a case to sort of suggest that employers need to be a little bit clearer with what the skills that they're specifically looking for? Because, you know, I suppose on the other hand, students are coming through, they're going for interviews, they're sending their CVs. How are they supposed to know exactly what the employers in the organizations they would like to work for are looking for, because when the terms are quite generic like that?
Yeah, I think there's probably two levels of responsibility here. There's a responsibility on the candidate, for me, to use every effort and every possible channel to understand more about the organization, as I said before, because I think there's sometimes a disconnect between what the organization wants and the talent acquisition stroke graduate team that are trying to convey that message to the market. Now that sounds really poor, but I see that day in, day out in some of our clients. I won't name any names, but I definitely see that where there's a disconnect. And how that comes to effect is when graduates tend to come into a business and say, I thought this is what the organization was looking for. And then the business say, no, absolutely not. You know, we want to roll you through a program of five different business areas in our business. And at the end of that program, we're not really sure where you're going to go. There's organizations like Deloitte, globally, and Arup, the engineering organization, that have now said, actually, we're going to be really clear about the role that we expect you to do as you join our organization. And this is the expectation of the skills, the experience, and the outputs. I think, Amit, you said about understanding what you need to do in the outputs of the role. So I think asking the candidate asking those questions, David, is one, shows that there's a real interest to the person that's speaking to the candidate or responding back, but also it will help the individual who's trying to apply for that role to say, do I really understand what this organization wants? So that disconnect is becoming shorter, I think, or smaller, in the sense now that a lot of organizations we are working with are undertaking a review of their process to say, are we clear around skills? Because historically we've just rolled this program forward year after year after year, and we've relied on the brand of the organization to attract people in. Now we understand actually it's less about rotations. We need to be clear around skill sets, because we understand as well that the population is neurodiverse. So we understand that for some people, a leadership role is absolutely where they want to be. But actually for others, it's a technical or a skill-based role that they want to fall into. And we don't have to try and fit everyone into both of those. We understand that we can assess people relevant to those roles. So, but I would say, being very open to however many people we've got on this call, that it is still in some organizations very difficult to see what an organization wants. And if there are those generic terms, what I would say is dig in and ask for more of that information. And whether that's using channels like Way Up, if organizations are sharing more about roles, whether it's trying to create a network with some individuals within that organization. I had someone connect with me all of, I think, a week ago, just to ask about our organization, about AMS, and what we do and what we expect out of people. That conversation was amazing for me, because one, it made me actually think, do I really understand what we're looking for? And I should do, looking after 780 people as I do today. But I also thought, can all of our team express what we're looking for from the market? And the answer is no. So I think asking that question and creating that network before you go into an organization is a great thing to do. and it really does show that there's an interest in the organisation as well. But I'd say there is a disconnect, and I don't think that's going to be fixed overnight or even in the next 6 to 12 months. But I think organisations are taking more of we've seen a shift as well. Sorry, and it's a long answer, but we've seen a shift currently in organisations going for that generic role to then much more specified skills and outcomes-based roles. And I think that's had a real impact, David, in people understanding. I think the pandemic has helped that as well, because I think we've realised, Amnique, to your point, and Leah, I know it was probably less difficult for you, but it was still difficult. That virtual onboarding and helping someone be successful in their first role is more critical now than it was 12, 18 months ago, 2 years ago now. And that's a learn for organisations. I think they've learned we've got to be really clear. Doesn't change the fact that I think 19% of graduates leave after 2 years. And I think what the number I've written down is 46% of leavers decided to look externally because it was easier to find a role that they could understand excel outside of the organisation they're already in. Stats and going clear on what we wanted from those individuals.
Sure.
But the more you can ask, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that something that I suppose, Amnique and Leah, is that something that you experienced, like feeling the need to, I suppose, ask more questions of the employer? Is this what you're looking for? I have X skill. Does this feel, I suppose, fit with the mold that they're looking for, or do you think it's more nuanced than that?
I think definitely. I think asking those questions is really important, because it also sort of, I think, helps you assess that is this organization a fit for you personally
Absolutely.
or not.
Yeah.
So I think understand more about, I think the networking is really important, that talk to people and understand more about the business as well as the team. So I think the team fit is also interesting, because within a business as big as Asda, so every team has a different culture as well. So before I joined, like, I spoke to a few people within the strategy team just to understand more about how this team is working. And like, I got a lot of interesting insights that it's a new team, it's a diverse team. So, you just sort of understand if this is a good fit for me or not. And even during the interview, it's important to ask these questions that, what is my role in the team and how do you see it? And I think it sort of helps you assess as well if this is the right place for me or not. Yeah.
Fab. Okay, and then I mentioned at the start, please feel free to send your own questions in throughout the conversation, and it's actually quite timely. Somebody has sent a questions about soft skills, and that flows in nicely from what you were talking about yourself, Leah. They say, I love Leah speaking about development of soft skills. Do you think that we need more of that in our business school curriculum? And how does that translate into CV related skills that employers may be looking for? I think that's a great question. I think it's very clear that, especially from a business graduate perspective, we know that the hard skills are going to be there. We know that they're going to have a great grasp of business acumen. But those soft skills are so hard to put into tangible, quantifiable terms. So how do you develop that within yourself, and how do you communicate that to prospective employers? So I'll go to yourself, Leah, first, if that's okay.
Yes, it's a good question. Yes, I think for me, really soft skills, it's like a gold medal, like how we will feel in your future job, how you will have opportunity, because it's like opportunity. You need to be here of opportunity. You need to develop your network, like Amnique said a few minutes ago, and it's all of this in these soft skills. I mean, hard skills, it's your class, it's what you learn, it's importance. I cannot say that it's not important, but it's complicated to translate in your curriculum, because it's not really something that you can write, of course, but it's something that you can speak during your interview, and you can speak thanks to your internship, thanks to your commitment, thanks to your association, your commitment with your hobby, with all of your time that you have outside of your class, outside of your like the way that everybody go in this way, but you have a lot of times outside of this way, of the common way, and I think it's the most important things. And you can do some link and logical link between what you want to do, what your commitment outside of the class, of your choice, of your business school choice, and how you can speak like a logical history, and how during the interview your future I don't know, future colleagues can say, okay, these people know where they want to go, know that this is exactly what they like, what they wanted to work with, and yes, I think it's inside you. It's complicated to explain it, but it's really important to be in phase between your professional life and your personal life. And if your professional life is like your passion, or like me, I think because I will love sports and I work in sports and I love sports events, and for example, today I always see the Tokyo's event because it's like my passion, and that's also my professional environment, and it appeals like something logical. So, sorry for the answer because it's a bit complicated.
No, I think that's a brilliant answer. I think that's an excellent answer. Thank you for that. I mean, is that
David, can I just say how that translates from a business perspective? Because I was listening to Leah, one, jealous of Leah's role as well.
We all are.
Yeah, I know. Apart from it's French rugby, Leah, I'd rather be English rugby, obviously, but we'll have that debate. But where I think where is interesting how that relates into a business and the organisations we work with is when candidates of any level can draw on external experiences that is either volunteering, sports related, group related, people related, that you already see that there's a capability for people to engage because they will have engaged in those environments. They will have had challenging conversations, confrontational conversations, conversations where they need to influence, and showing when someone can draw on experiences, and to Leah's point, if that's a natural interest to you, you'll be good at it probably because it's something you're interested in. But when people can draw on those groups or those interests or sports, whatever it may be, it just shows that someone's got some of those softer skills already or has had to exhibit them. And I think that's a brilliant way because, you know, again, organizations are moving away from competency-based questions, especially when we're talking about early in careers talent. So being able to draw on external experiences and the many, not the few, because again, being able to draw from multiple different examples of either different groups, different interests, again, tells someone that that person's had experience where they've had to use those soft skills. It doesn't have to be business related. So that would be how I see it transposed to a business conversation.
Did you want to pick up on that, Anique, or?
No, I think they've covered it really well. I agree with both of them. I think the personal story bit is quite interesting. I think it's how you bring that, as Richard perfectly put it, within the different activities that you're part of. And also, I feel like maybe the cover letter helps as well sometimes when you want to add more around your story and sort of give more examples that, you know, really helps you bring out those softer skills to some extent.
It's a great point. Thank you all. I've had a follow-up question around soft skills, so I'm just going to ask that now while we're on topic. So they're sort of saying around formal training of soft skills. So they're sort of asking, do you value differently learning soft skills in a formal training setting, like, for example, seminars or I suppose coaching versus real life experience dealing with situations when those skills are developed? I suppose the latter, you often don't know that you're developing the skills, you just sort of do. So I'm not really sure how you would answer that, but I'll hand that one over to you guys to address. Richard, what do you think about that first?
It's really interesting. We all have a natural tendency in terms of what we like to do and who we like to do it with. And I always thought I was a great communicator in terms of when I was in business development meetings or sales meetings or new clients. And I always enjoy when there's a crisis mode because I enjoy the getting into the detail, showing my commitment to a cause and saying, I'll fix this and my team will fix this. I then had to do some media training 2 years ago. And I thought, I'll be great at this. I love speaking. I love panels. I love all the rest. I was absolutely terrible. I can't tell you how bad I was. And when I listened back to my mock radio interview and my mock TV interview, I realized how bad I was. And so the training helped me understand that in certain scenarios, what's the key messages I want to get across. And so formalized training for me in that environment worked really well, because it showed me where my weaknesses were. It showed me that actually I wasn't communicating the message well. And what was really great, David, is it actually helped me in the instances where I thought I'd be really good. I thought I could be better.
Yeah.
But I agree totally. I've learned many a hard lesson, and the best coaching I've ever had is when I've made a mistake and it hasn't gone well. And I thought, I'll never use that method again. It didn't work with that stakeholder, and it did work with this one. So I think formal training has a place, but it will be different for everyone on this, on this seminar and everyone on this panel. But I do think it has a place. You've just got to find what's that place and where do I get it naturally, and where does that formalized learning help? That's what I found personally.
I think I agree. I think there's always, like with softer skills, there's always scope for improvement. So even if you're really good at it, there is always scope, to be better and learn something more around it. So I think I've never received a formal training, but yeah, I think I've started thinking about it that, as I'm progressing in my career, it would be good to get some professional training and improve. Yeah.
I mean, I think that fits quite nicely into the next question that I'd like to ask. And I think that we talk a lot at BGA about lifelong learning and how important it is to us that leaders never stop learning. Once you're in a role, how important do you think it is to keep accessing, I suppose, new business knowledge, new skills? How do you do that in a virtual environment? What would your advice be to people listening about how they can continually upskill to keep improving, enhancing their career trajectory? I'll come to you first, Leah, if that's okay.
It's a good question, and I think we ask every day with Hamnik this kind of question, because it's really important as well for our professional, but even for a personal. I know I speak a lot for personal view, but I think both really work together. And if we speak about professional knowledge, I mean how we can improve always more, and how we can be in phase with how projects, how ambitions. For example, I did a lot of formations thanks to my company. They offer me like some opportunities to improve like Excel formation, like also soft skills like concentrations formation, or even like team, the insertion inside the team, and what place we need to have according with our jobs. So yes, I think it's good, even it's always difficult by camera because it's not really pleasant for everybody. But also we need to improve how knowledge year by year. But I think also we need to work on how the ambition, where we would like to work after, and to go there, what we need, which knowledge we need, and in this way that I used to have in my life. Because okay, I have my job, I need to do this and this, so I know that my company will offer me what I need. That's good for maybe this year and the next 5 years, but what I want to do after these 5 years, and for that what I need. And I think that to think about the future, it's really a good way to first know what we want to know, to improve, and second, to don't just close our eyes about all the opportunity around us, and be aware. Maybe LinkedIn, it's a really good good network, and also we we are here to speak about business school, and I think the business school network, the alumni network, it's a really good network. And again, I will talk about sports, but in my ecosystem, sports ecosystem, I really used this alumni network, because it's, when we have one fit in the ecosystem, it's really easier after to know people, and then they just call you to have a job, and they think about you for another opportunity. And really, if I can give you one thing, it's really that, yes, human is, it's really important.
I think I agree to that. Like, that personal journey is really important. Like, there would be some upskilling which you require from your job, but also looking at the bigger picture, like personally, what more you want to learn and what areas of interest are there and how you want to grow. That's really important. And I think having that self-assessment is important, that, you know, where I am currently and where I want to be. That is, and then how to bridge the gap with this more training required. And it could be some professional courses you want to take, or it could be peer-to-peer learning, having that alumni network. So there are lots of areas, but I think the first step is having that self-assessment and awareness that where I am currently and where I want to be.
Thank you. Richard, just changing the question slightly for yourself. A lot of people who take postgraduate or master's programs do so because they want to change careers. And I suppose, you know, they might have started their course before the pandemic hit, and now they're thinking to themselves, is this the right time for me to change careers? Rich, is it the right time for them to change careers?
Wow, I feel like I could be responsible for lots of people being annoyed. Is it the right time? Do you know what? I think for individuals, if it feels it is, it probably is. And I would say that. And I think to Leah's point, you have to be hungry. And if you're hungry, you have that burning sensation, that itch of, should I do something different, or I want to do something different, then you should scratch that itch for sure. And you should follow that and think about it. So I think it is a good time, David. I think I'll give you why I think it's a good time from a data perspective. Now I'll come to what I saw. Data tells us that there is that war on talent. I hate those words, but there is a war on talent, and there's a shortage of skills and experience out in the marketplace. And we know from the Boston Consulting Group report about 5 years ago that war on talent is going to increase, because we don't even know the skills that we need in the future yet. And when we do know, there'll be a shortage of them. So having that appetite and that hunger to think, what do I want to do next? And understanding that gap, as Amnika and Leah said, around what I can do and what I need to be able to do, and where do I go and get that learning from or experiences from. So I think that's really important. So yes, I think it's a good time but the data tells it is. I think there is also a challenge that organizations have still got a commitment to their existing employees around how do we grow our own talent as well. So there is an initiative, and I've seen, you know, we work with most of the biggest banks globally now. I still see that the message out internally is we want to grow our own talent. And what we are seeing with a shift of the digitalization and automation is there is a reduction in that customer-centric, customer service type of roles, manual roles, to a more digitized technology role type. So organizations are saying, how do we, historically it would have been we're going to say to those individuals, those jobs don't exist anymore, and we're going to go to the market. Now it's much more, can we reskill the people we have today? So I'd say, look within your own organization first to say, because it is always easier to be able to make that shift internally, because you've got a network, you've got the reputation, hopefully a strong reputation, no doubt you all have, to say, how do you leverage that internally first? So I would ask those questions first internally. If those internal questions aren't being answered, then absolutely I would start leaning on that external network or your business school network to say, are there opportunities elsewhere? But to Leah's point, go and grab those skills first and understand the gap, because if you can express that in those discussions, then this person knows what they need to do. Personally, I didn't have that view in my career of where I wanted to be. I didn't say at 12 years old or 18 years old or 20 years old, I want to be a managing director of a recruitment business. I had no idea. And that wasn't the dream. It was a Formula One driver, to be honest. But I was nowhere near that. But I remember when what drove me was I wanted to be challenged in every role I did, but I didn't know what role I wanted to do next in business. And I spent some time, this sounds really cool, I spent some time on my time off back in the business with a few of our leaders saying, I'm really interested to know more about what you do. And it was hard to ask that question. Can I come understand what your job is? Because I don't understand it. But when I got a flavor of what they did, I thought that'd be really interesting. How do I, and again, at my point in career, no one knew how to use Excel. It's different now, but the fact you could turn Excel on meant you were in a good position. So I went and spent some time with the data analytical team to understand what they did, because that was an interest for me. And then I understood I need to know more about analytics, more about methodologies, Erlang C, all that good thing. And that's what I went and did. And that took me in a whole different career path from where I was down in operational management view. So I'd just say, be inquisitive, ask the questions internally first, because you should do, it shows an interest. And then if you're not getting what you need there, then absolutely, now is a great time. It's buoyant. Now is a great time to look external.
Thank you. I can see we've got loads of questions coming in from the audience, and I want to try and get through as many of those as I can. So just before I do, you're all success stories. You're all in management roles now. What would you be looking for if you were recruiting a graduate, and what would your one piece of advice be to somebody graduating this year? I'll come to you first, Amnique, if that's okay.
Okay. So I think in terms of recruitment, as Rich touched upon this before as well, I think curiosity is something that is really, it is important when you're having that interview, and if you ask the right questions, and if you show that hunger of like, if you want to grow and you want to learn, and that is, I think, something which really speaks out for me, and it's something I think it's important to show. And then on the second question, which is around one piece of advice, which I feel that I think getting a job, I feel it's not a one person activity, and it requires, it's a team effort, I feel, and it is really important to sort of, I feel, take support from your friends or mentors, or it could be your careers team. I think having that really helped me in my in getting a job through the pandemic, because you need sort of that confirmation, that reassessment that, am I doing the right thing? Have multiple reviews of your CV and do multiple mock interviews. That sort of helps you build that confidence and aim towards the right direction. So I think that is my piece of advice, that don't try to do it all alone. Sort of take more support from your friends and your mentors.
Great answer. Thank you. Rich?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm back. Great. Yeah, Amnique, I thought you stole a couple of mine there. So I think the village to raise a child piece is really interesting. And I did some learning myself recently, where we were looking at our board, we're looking at what's our network of influencers, who do we use to support, to get ideas of. And I realized my small circle of influencers wasn't varied enough, and so I was only getting one view of the world. And if I was looking externally on the job market or organizations, it would be too narrow. So to your point, Amnique, being able to lean on people with experience, to lean on people that are in different organizations, different industries, is really critical. I think what helps a graduate stand out at any level, and this is not just early careers, but into your next move, is understanding the organization. I've said that already, but I can't say that enough. It really does impress. It really does make me think someone really knows. And in a world where we're so bothered about the retention of talent, having someone that shows a natural interest in your organization actually means to someone hiring that person, they're interested in our organization. They may stick with us. They may want to know, they've learned about our warts and all, the good and the bad, what they want to in our organization. I think being informed, to Leia's point about the career path, and demonstrating how they're proactively gone about bridging the skills gap. Because again, there's lots of talk about talent these days, or people that are newer to organizations want development to be spoon-fed. I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe we'd have a cultural shift like that. I just believe that people don't necessarily see, or are uncomfortable asking the question around, where are my gaps? If you can ask those questions and be proactive about those gaps, it just shows an aptitude to learn, but also that you're prepared to do the hard yards to be really successful in that new career, if you're looking, or to be really successful in your first career. I think has attended either insight sessions or expos with the business, expo, so really understands again more about the organization, but can evidence that and be involved in that. And then again, that outside experience piece is massive, being able to lean on those experiences again. And I think there's some questions, David, in the chat around experience roles. Being able to lean on those external experiences again is important, whether you're new to the workplace or trying to move careers. So they would be my key elements.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Leah?
If I can say one advice for you who are looking for a job, or even if you are 1 year again in your master degree, just be on the lookout for opportunities. And if you don't find a job right now after your school, or just in the months before, just enjoy this time to improve one thing that you like, or do one thing that you like travel, or I don't know, whatever you want. But it's always one more thing when you will be back on the job market after this period, and will have like an advantage, and it will be always more. And also it's for your personal development, and it's always good. So just enjoy, and don't be so stressed by the job and looking for it.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. So there's some great questions coming through. The first one I have is one that was emailed to me last week. So I'll ask that first because it's only fair. So they ask, in addition to social challenges during the pandemic and the job market being biased towards extroverted behaviors, how can an introvert stand out from the crowd and furthermore increase attractiveness of gainful employment to employers? So if we could try and answer the questions quite quickly, just so as we can get through, but I'll come to you first, Amnique, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I think it sort of links back to my previous point around curiosity. So I feel it's more around, it's not about being extrovert and talking more and, building. I think just be your authentic self, and sort of, if you ask the right questions and if you just hit the nail with, one question, I think that is enough. Sort of that, I think, feels right. So I feel like it's important to be your authentic self, and don't try to be an extrovert person if you're not. So I feel just, in the interview, just be who you are and just show your personality by being your true self. And I think for me personally, the Zoom sort of helped me. I would say, being an introvert myself, it sort of was easier for me to have conversations on Zoom. And I sort of prefer it now after 1 year of so much Zoom. So,
Thank you. Leah, Rich, do you have anything to add?
I think organizations, I've said this before, David, organizations, to you earlier, have historically favored the extrovert. Historically, and there are some industries and some probably front office banking clients that still do that. But I think more organizations now are looking at the data to say we need a diverse population, both in gender and ethnicity, but also in neuro. And actually, so they're trying to adjust a lot of their processes in terms of hiring assessment to not be biased towards the people that stand up and talk the loudest, to actually look at where we need those thoughtful leaders, to where we need reflectors, to any people that can be those strategists that aren't going to be the loudest voice in the crowd. So yes, there are industries that I think still favor that, but I think we're quickly moving towards organizations being much more balanced and want to be diverse in their hiring. But I think everything Amnique said, be inquisitive, and yeah, great.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've had some great questions in. First one I'm going to ask is, so research from the World Economic Forum lists a number of future jobs over the next 10 years, some of which are not even in existence yet. Just to build on that, I saw some research myself. I think it's the Institute of Future Work that found that as many as like 70–80% of the jobs that will exist in 10 years don't exist now. So I suppose it's another lifelong learning question, but they're asking, what would you suggest viewing this and rethinking one's upskilling to align for jobs that we don't know whether or not they'll exist yet? I'll throw that out there and let anyone who would like to answer. I don't want to bounce.
I think if someone can tell me what those future jobs are now, I'll offer them a role today within our organization. Yep, they can come and work for us, no doubt, straight away. Senior leadership role, that's fine. We work with the Institute of Futures. We work with a number of those organizations when we hold our yearly conference. It's a real challenge because all of the organizations we work with are asking the same question. So you have organizations with big order books like a BAE Systems that make submarines globally, right through to organizations that are in markets and pre-trade where it changes day to day. So I'd just say, follow your interests first, because you have to be interested and be passionate about what you do, I believe, to be successful. I think you have to be. So I think follow your interest and see where that takes you from a, what can I see come in potentially, and to keep abreast of that industry information. Because all too often, you know, I asked a candidate a few weeks ago for a senior role, have you read our latest market report around us as an organization? Great place to start. It's there available in the network. No, not read that. So for me, keeping inquisitive and interested, I think it's really difficult, David. I don't, you know, I was talking to an organization, a car organization last week, where there's something like 200 people in their ergonomics division of how the dashboard looks of a car. That role didn't exist, or it was done by one person 5 years ago, you know, so 10 years ago. So it's just a crazy movement. I think keeping abreast of industry or research to understand what it is, but having an interest, to Leia's point, in what you do, what will serve you best. I think it's a real gamble to follow, to try and guess what that's going to be, and to say, I'm going to go and learn that skill, because I think you just got to be interested in it.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. Leia, I think this is one for you. You mentioned internships. So the person's asking, do you think that, did you experience that the only way to get into business graduate roles is via internships? They're saying they understand that junior professional programs, it, you know, obviously draws on a lot of internships, but what do you see in business roles for more experienced hires? So I think they're sort of asking what alternatives to internships there are to enter graduate roles.
Yeah, I think that your business school experience is for a great part thanks to your internships. Like I said before, because in 4 years, I think we have like 4 or 5 internships. It depends which way we took, but it's like, you know, I think it's really huge. And when you compare, because thanks to my my degree, my master degree, double master degree with sports school, I could compare my internships and all my backstage with the other students. We didn't. We did not a business school degree, and it was really different. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like one experience, professional experience, at the end of 4 years. And compare with us, like we have, it's not exactly because we have a lot of experience, but it's because thanks to these experiences, we have time to know what exactly we want to do. And if you want to discover another, I don't know, if you like finance, you can try finance, and finally you say, okay, no, it's not for me, finance, I don't like it. So then your next one, you can maybe discover another one. So you have time to challenge your ambition. But also I think internship is fine, but also you have like we discussed before, sometimes when we can just think about what you want before, like 6 months abroad, where you can just discover people and learn to live with different culture. Like Amnit said also 10 minutes ago. And for example, I went in India, and in that time, I really have time to think to what I want to do, if I want to stay or not, if that what exactly I want. And I think it's not only professional time, but all this small time can help you to really discover you first and discover what you want to do, professionally speaking. So, yes.
Cool. I'm going to try and get through the question, so I think I'll just ask the next one. So this is a great question. What about more mature graduates whose careers have been derailed due to the pandemic? They're saying there's been a perception that we're too set in our ways, are somehow uncoachable for new roles. In my experience, it's extremely tough to even get an interview when I see roles for which I believe I can add value. I think that's a really important issue. Rich, can you pick up on that? Is that something that you might be able to help with?
Yeah, I can. and it hurts to actually see that. And I think, was it Paul that had asked that question? A great question, actually. So a few organisations, Barclays being one of them, that we hired all global permanent roles for right now. So about 18,000 roles a year. Last year, or the year before last, sorry, ventured on a programme for more experienced graduates or business school graduates and more experienced or people out of other organisations, not necessarily graduates. So how do they come back into the workplace or to reskill and to join Barclays? So they held a specific programme around bringing experienced talent back in that hadn't necessarily worked in the industry but could have transferable skills or experiences. But I don't think it's enough, David, is the honest answer. And I think we're finding that there's been a huge focus from a diversity perspective, rightly so, in gender, right? So about pay gap, now ethnicity. And I think age is one of the ones that is there, but hasn't had the right focus on. And when I say age, I mean experience, not necessarily just age of the individual. So I think, being honest, Paul, I think organizations are catching on to this, is how do we bring talent in? What will drive that more is the need. And the need is here. The need is here now, because there are certain career types where just talent doesn't exist. So my advice would be, if there are roles that you are interested in where you think you can add value, are there certain gaps to your experience or your skill set that you can bridge now before you went into that organization? Say, yes, I'm not a 100% match, but I have gone personally and sought those skills and experience. I think that's the first thing you can do individually. I think secondly is that network that Amnique talked about, is how can you increase your network? So genuinely, to anyone on this call, if he wants to connect with me on LinkedIn and use my network or talk to me, I'm really happy to do that outside of this. But I think that organizations are catching on, David, not quick enough. I'd love to be able to say more organizations doing what Barclays have done and looking at how we bring in more experienced talent back into the workplace, either because they're not working today or they're in a role that doesn't utilize their skills. I think organizations are catching on, just not quick enough for our liking, but it will come. It will come.
Thank you very much. That was a brilliant answer. I hope that helps. Does anybody else want to pick up on that, or shall I move on? Okay. We've got 3 minutes left. We've been talking obviously about recruitment and trends in employment during the pandemic. Richard, you said at the start, hopefully, perhaps the darkest days are behind us and we're moving out of COVID world. Just to finish, I'll be interested to sort of find out from all three of you what you're most optimistic about in terms of career prospects for, I suppose, for our audience as we move out of the pandemic. Do you feel optimistic, and what you're most excited about? Can I come to you first, Amnique?
Yes, that's a good question. I think with the pandemic, there's been sort of change in consumer behavior, and as part of my role, we are seeing a lot that some markets have accelerated, and there's been increased demand in some pockets of the market. So I think what I'm optimistic about is, as we come out of the pandemic, I think the job market is also going to expand, and there's going to be requirement for the new skills and a more digital-led, I think, world is where we are heading towards. So there'll be more need for, there'll be more roles around it. So I think that's what I'm excited and optimistic about, that how we are switching more to a digital world. And in terms of working, now we are moving to hybrid working, and that has changed the way we work. So yeah, I think.
Thank you. Leah?
Yeah. I think I feel optimistic about this pandemic, and also the future of this pandemic. If we talk about professional way, I think it's really optimistic, because this pandemic can really change a lot of things and allow to develop some strategy inside of all the company. I mean, for example, like the office outside or the home office. I think it's a good thing. For example, in my company, it was 1 year ago. It was like, wow, you cannot do this. It's like impossible with your job. You cannot work like this. Like, stop with this question. So we were like, okay. And thanks to this pandemic, I don't really hate to say that, but thanks to this pandemic, we have 2 days of home office actually, and starting September, we'll start in September, and I think it's a good thing also for everybody, and we can also share missions between there, that we have like a lot of conference, we need to work back with team and everything, and there that we need to focus on something, and we need to be concentrated, and it's really complicated when we are in the big open space, something like this. So that's a good thing. And also, personally speaking, I think we saw a lot of a really huge turnover in a lot of companies, and I think really a lot of people had time to just thinking about what they want to do, and this time just like, okay, I don't want to stay here, but the time before I was like, I need to do this. It was like really the time like goes fast, and thanks to just the small rhythm and this pandemic, the waves of the pandemic, it was really grateful, I think, for some people that they just won't take another way or something like this. So I'm optimistic, and I think just we need to see the good things.
Thank you. And Rich, I'll leave it to you to close.
Wow. I think Leah or Amnique should have closed. No, I think, so what I'm optimistic about, I think we've seen the turn on of the job market already. We're in the middle of that, and I think that will continue for some time from an economical perspective. I think what I'm excited about is pre-pandemic, it comes back to what Leah was saying, pre-pandemic, there were some locations or regions or cities where a lot of the senior leadership experience management roles existed. And if you weren't in one of those hubs or nearby or commutable, it was really difficult to break into some of those roles. What I've seen in our organization and other organizations is this has allowed those roles to be much more regionally diverse and across the globe, not just in one location. And I think that's brilliant, because we can now show a career path to lots of people in lots of organizations that doesn't mean you have to move from where you live and where you love living and your friends and family and all the rest. I think quality time is another one that I see coming out of this, that we've now realized that when we used to travel, I once flew to Philadelphia in the US from the UK for a 1-hour meeting, not at my request, at a client request. And I think clients now understand, and we understand as a business, that isn't the best use of our time. Yeah. We don't get the most out of our people, and we don't get the most focus. And what that time should be spent doing is the time when you really do need to maybe strategize or get together and have those scrums where you can relate to each other as a team again. So I think that's the other one. I think as well, I think to Leah makes a brilliant point. It's giving people thinking time. Good for me in our organization, because we've seen a real ramp up, but it's hard on organizations right now that are trying to replace some of that attrition. But what it has done, to Leah's point, is created a time for people to think, is this where I want to go next? So no, I think they're the key points I'm excited about. And I'm genuinely excited about the skills we don't know about yet, because I think that's going to, we do a lot of automation in our organization. And people have said to me in our centers, but what does that mean for my role? Well, hopefully it means that automation gives you an opportunity to do more of the quality engagement, not the turntable tasks that you've been doing. So again, I think this pandemic has driven an acceleration of that. And those new roles that none of us can see today, they're going to be really exciting to be involved in. So that's where I'd close.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That is all we've got time for. We've run over slightly, but it was a fascinating conversation, so I'm hopeful that no one will mind. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for sending so many fantastic questions to our panel. As I mentioned at the start of the conversation, the recording will be available after the event, so we'll circulate that to you in about a week from now. But all that remains for me to say is, Richard, Amnique, Leah, I appreciate how busy you all are. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to talk to us about careers. And thank you for all your insight and for being so authentic and so real. I really, really enjoyed speaking to you today. So thank you very much.
Thanks, David. I love listening to the guys. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks everyone for joining, and goodbye.